Ladies and gentlemen, Homai Te Pakipaki CEO of the Oranganui Iwi Health Authority, Nancy Tuaine.
Ana, tika te kōrero o tā rāua mātua, he mokopuna ahau o te kāhui manga i te puto o te ka māui tiki tiki ātaranga e rauranga tira mā tēnā koutou katoa. I couldn't really start today without reflecting on the panel. So given that I'm the first person of the iwi collectives to get the mic after the panel, I thought I just wanted to put a bit of a wero out there about really the fact that the political parties who mentioned today that they'll seek to review the impact of wānau water if they get in, to me was a real disappointment. Because I know in my organisation, we've got some contracts that have been going for 12 years, same descriptions, never had the critique or valuation that we've had in wānau water in 3 years. So, you know, I've just finished my treaty negotiations for my river, and I felt the same sort of injustice just then, so I thought I better get up and say that, otherwise I probably wouldn't be able to go on with my kōrero, because truly I did feel unjust. In terms of where's the trust? We heard about the long-term outcomes that my mate Les just talked about. This takes time, they're huge issues. Everybody's chucking us their hardest wānau. It's not going to happen overnight. Anyway, that's political Nancy. I needed to put her on the tutu and get her out of the way. And now we'll get on to my kōrero. And I can't sit still behind the podium, so I got the lady to lap me up. I think that's what you call it, or mic me up. Anyway, I think me and Les went to the same kura. Not really, but some of the things that he talked about today are really what I'm going to talk to you about in terms of the work that we've been doing over the last 3 years. And in terms of my focus, it's not on the $13.8 million that JT talked about. It's all of the other $1 million coming into our community, servicing our people with the same old models. And this is our time to lead change, not just under wānau water, but in our communities. So as I've been looking at this huge journey, there's 4 facets to it that I have been exposed to as a CEO of Te Oranganui. Ko au, what an individual needs to do to be able to deliver in a wānau water way. Ko tāua, what do you and I need to do as people who work with wānau? Working effectively as colleagues. Ko mātau, in terms of our organisations or collectives, what do we need to do collectively to make an impact? And ko tātou, a systems approach across communities. And Les talked about cooperating and communities, and that's a bit about what I'm going to talk to you about. Ka pai? Okay, it's after lunch, so I'm trying to keep your enthusiasm. So when I say ka pai, you go, aye. Ka pai? Kia ora. Okay, so ko au, let's start there. Adapting and improving your individual practice. And this is a challenge to all of us. As people who work on the ground with wānau, hapu, iwi, we need to be able to differentiate ourselves between transacting and transforming, because we've been transacting for a long time. And for some of our people, it's a hard thing to get out of. And we need to actually, you know, do a bit of workshopping and a bit of education about how do you analyse if you've moved as a kaimahi. We need clear and accurate documentation, noting the baseline. And Les talked about baseline, so I was sitting there going, well, wow, this is pretty cool. I'm on his same waka. So a baseline with clear identification of the needs and goals. If we don't know where we started, we don't know what's changed. And so, you know, you have to go back and make sure that we're all capable of writing our start, of writing that story, of capturing what matters most. and self-analysis and evaluation of our own work to ensure it evidences wānau transformation. So documentation hasn't always been some of our strongest points. As kaimahi, some of ours back home, the best kaimahi were the worst writers. You'd say, bring me your files, there's nothing in there. Auntie Taru would know. But that needs to change. If we're going to show this country that we know how to lead change for our wānau, we need to make sure that we can evidence it. And we need to put just as much energy into that evidencing. Seeking supervision, professional support to ensure that our practice is of the highest standard. Sometimes we think we know it all, but actually, like Les says, we can't all do it. We need to make sure that we have checks and balances along the way, and this is focused on a kaimahi perspective. So moving to ko tāua, you and I, as colleagues, reviewing our working relationships and ensuring that they're supportive of reaching wānau outcomes. And that gate's still not open. In many respects, there's still a lot of barriers to, one, sharing conversations and sharing information. Most importantly, making sure the wānau has given their approval for that to happen. And if you're working with your wānau and bringing them alongside you, then that should be a matter of course that can happen. So it acknowledges the importance of relationships at an individual level. You need to work with who else is working with that wānau. Ensures kaimahi are working together to meet the needs of wānau, not the needs of their organisation, not the needs of their boss who said don't tell them that, because that's where we've come from. And some are moving and some aren't moving. Because whilst we've had this beautiful, wonderful policy development, we've actually failed to educate the whole country about what it means. So some are still catching up. And it's good to be ahead. And I think we are. So actively building relationships with colleagues to enhance the wānau experience and the outcomes. We should be doing things because it makes a difference, not because we need to do that because that was there for mai rano, reviewing those things. Focus on what can happen rather than what can't happen. So what can you do? When people often say, oh, well, you can't do that, well, the next question you should be asking, okay, well, what can you do? Because we only want to be doing what you can do. Change the language, and it changes the journey. Ko mātau. So for us at Te Oranganui, we've been looking at how to adapt our organisation's approach and streamlining systems and making sure the wānau journey is as smooth as possible. Because just because you've got a range of services in yourself, within your own entity, doesn't mean they've been always communicating properly. So make sure you analyse your organisation properly, and if you're working in a collective, make sure that you're analysing that collective relationship properly. The need for the organisation to build a systems approach. So that is across that system. Les talked about mapping that out. Map that out, make sure that it's seamless. Single and shared data entry points, reducing duplication. And IT hasn't quite caught up with us. We've still got 5-6 databases in Te Oranganui. One for mental health, one for family start, one for about to be wānau order, or there'll be 4 of those. You've got all of these data needs. They still haven't quite caught up to where this journey's going. So reviewing practice and processes to reflect a single connected journey. A single referral process, a single data entry point. So they don't have to tell you 10 times their name, their address, and how many tamariki they have. Just capture that once and make sure that you need to get out of that what you need to get out of that. Develop shared case management. We're required to improve outcomes for wānau. Inclusive and empowering of the wānau. And ko tātou. So if we're thinking about how we influence communities, we need to think about working collectively, developing a systems approach to ensure wānau outcomes are evident within the population. It acknowledges the importance of relationships at an organisational level, sharing resources, education and training opportunities, using a hub and spoke model to support workforce development and capacity building, secondments, cooperative decision making, strong leadership reinforcing the wāna-ora approach across communities. And I'll just give you a couple of examples of what we've tried to do there. In terms of sharing resources in education and training opportunities, Te Oranganui has a training calendar that it does to ensure it maintains quality systems without the organisation. We shared that with all of the other Māori health providers in our region so that they can participate where they want to on particular kaupapa. Another example is that we purchased an Institute of Directors course. If you go to one of these, and it was a single day on strategy, if you went to the course, it was $950 plus travel and accommodation to Wellington. We purchased it in-house. We got 24 places. Our board took up 7, and then we gave out the rest of those to all of the other iwi providers and governors around us. That meant we trained 24 governors for half the price of it, probably a third of the price of what it would have cost them in time and money to travel. So thinking about doing things like that, smarter, building capacity within our communities, using our dollar to make it go 3 times further. You know, those are the kinds of economics that we need to show some of our friends, because that's some of the stuff we're doing. Using a hub and spoke model. You know, some of us have built good systems. Why replicate them? So we've offered some of these systems out to our other smaller providers in Aotearoa, and they're taking the opportunity to come and learn some of those things and put their kaimahi on placement within our organisation. So doing some of that stuff, working smarter, building capacity. And we've got a secondment currently with us from CYF. We don't want to send her back, and hopefully she's going to stay. And that's the kind of things that you want to see happening. Getting that skill level, bringing it in, and working alongside what we're doing. Most important though, we have to believe in this. And we have to stick our hand up and our head up sometimes and say, we can lead those things. And recently we've done that in terms of healthy families. So the RFP has gone out throughout New Zealand for healthy families. And Te Oranganui stuck its hand up and said, we can lead this community and do this. So we've started that. I'll come back and tell you how it went next time. But that's the web. And these are only a few things that I decided to put up to show you. There's our little puti that we've been growing over the last 20 years. And these are a range of relationships, and if I mapped them, the line would go all over the place like Les's did. But we're doing things with all of these people, and sometimes in isolation of each other, or sometimes together. And I suppose what wāna-ora has given us, it's given us that policy that says this is a model that you can implement in your community. This is a validated model. And it's given us roles on with CYF, we're on consistency, we're on panel. So we're making critical decisions in our communities about our tamariki. We're making goals about the reduction in uplifts at birth. We're making things that we want to see happen for our people through all of this myriad of spider web. So what's it going to take? It's going to take active relationships. You've got to be everybody's friend. You don't have to go home and eat dinner with them, but you do have to be able to have conversations that are moving our people forward. Whether we get on with them or not, that's not really the point. It's whether or not our wānau are going to have an improved journey because we had a conversation. It's going to mean strong leadership, because as you have seen by that example, people don't believe that this can work. People are waiting to see some evidence. We've had screeds of evidence chucked out of our organisation through the ministry over the last 3 years to show that this works. But people have to read it. So I'm not sure if they're reading it, but I know there's outcomes that are happening every day from each and every one of us. And they need to pull it out of the drawer and have a proper read. Whānau-centred. Everybody's whānau-centred these days, or person-centred. So I know that this policy has had an impact on our communities because people have moved. They don't quite know where they're going, and that's okay too. But they have seen the value in some of this mahi. It's a clear vision, and thank you to all of those people who have had this vision, and our kaumātua talked about it this morning, where some of those first discussions happened. And in the 21st century, we have a policy, a kaupapa Māori policy in government, and we should be all proud of that, but we've got to make it happen into the future. That's going to be our challenge. And a capable workforce, and I can't underestimate the value of this. And yes, we have to have capable whānau, and that's our vision too. But Maslow says in his triangle, there's a whole lot of needs on the way to self-actualisation. And everybody is chucking us the whānau at the bottom of that pyramid. So we've got to help deal with some of those things and keep our eye on the potential, because that's where we're heading. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.